Hi and welcome to the Prodcast, your fix for everything innovative in advertising production. I'm Pat Murphy and I've been working in this industry for more than 35 years now. I've seen a lot of changes, but know there's plenty more around the corner. Each week on the podcast, you'll get to hear from one of the movers and shakers who are shaping the world of advertising and production for the future. And we'll dive into some of the key challenges facing our sector today and how we're best placed to overcome them. Today's guest is someone I've been looking forward to very much speaking with. PJ Pereira is one of the most original creative minds in our business, a Brazilian-born creative leader, entrepreneur, writer, and co-founder of Pereira Odell in San Francisco and now AI-first agency SilverSide. He's built a career at the intersection of storytelling, technology, and innovation, creating work that hasn't just won awards, but has genuinely shifted the conversation around what branded creativity can be. From landmark projects like The Beauty Inside through to his broader thinking on AI, narrative and human behavior, PJ has always struck me as someone who sees around corners a bit, which makes him the perfect guest for our conversation today about where creativity is heading, what AI means for talent and clients, and whether our industry is evolving or just getting better at pretending it is. PJ, bem-vindo ao Prodcast.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
Let's start at the beginning then. Programmer, storyteller, creative leader, that's not the usual route into advertising. What did that early coding mindset teach you that still shapes how you work today?
So it's funny because I remember my first job in advertising. I'll go forward so I can go back. But my first job in advertising, my first agency, I ended up after a while, I got fired from every department. They're like, yeah, you're kind of cool, but you don't belong here.
That makes two of us. I got fired as well from every agency. So it's no problem.
So they kept firing me from the departments, and I tried that other department, and I ended up landing on the creative department. And they finally asked me, so are you a writer or an art director? And I said, I'm a programmer. And it's like, oh, you don't belong here. No, calm down. Do I really need to pick one? But yeah, okay, then I'm a writer. But I was a programmer. The thing for me is that when I was a kid, I was always a shy kid that liked to stay in the corner. I always had more fun in my own head than talking to other human beings. Right? So I like the quietness of my head or the loudness of it. But it was always about that. I was always in the corner by myself, either writing or drawing or programming on computer. For me, those three things were exactly the same. They were just expressions. And what I didn't know at that time, it was just like, yeah, those are just fun things that I like to do. But what it actually was is that I was being creative. I was enjoying being creative. Later down the road, I started to enjoy martial arts as well, and included. Then way further, I got into advertising when I was kind of my early 20s. But before that, it was drawing, writing, programming my computers, and for me, they were all the same thing. And so the combination of those three things always got me to thinking about, okay, what is new out there? How can I hack it? And I didn't have the words for that, but the play was has always been like, since I was a kid, how can I do this in a way that it was not supposed to be happening? How can subvert this in a way and write stories with characters that are not supposed to be there, or make drawings in ways that are not supposed to be drawn, or program things with features that was not supposed to be. And subverting the original intentions have always been my thing. So that created a discipline of always trying to know what's next, just so I can mess with it.
But all of those skills of you sitting in the corner playing with things and technology and stuff has played into very much the role that a creative director has today. And would you call yourself a creative technologist?
I have called myself that multiple times, and I've seen people say, no, this is, you're a creative director. A creative technology is a smaller thing. And no, it's not smaller. And it's just smaller because our directors and writers want to say that they're more important than technology people. I come from technology. That's my creative background is really technology. The writing and the art direction came later. I write novels. So I actually write more and deeper stuff than advertising people write. But I'm actually a tech person.
I was going to ask you about your novels. And you do that under a different name as well. Do you have any other
Yes.
personas? What we're asking.
No, I have my martial arts. It's funny because social media forced me to have a little bit more clarity on that. But so I split my social media profiles in very different facets of my life. So my LinkedIn profile is my business. A lot of AI things conversation happen on LinkedIn. On social on Instagram, I am a martial artist. I only talk about martial arts. On TikTok, I only post as a novelist. So it's a mix of different things, and it's fun to be able to turn off one part of your brain and go, okay, now I'm this. I think we're so associated with our own. The handshaking test. You go to a party and you introduce yourself. So I'm Peck. And then that first thing you say is usually what you tell yourself that your identity is. And the problem is that eventually you get sick of it, and then you get sick of yourself, and you lose sense of who you are. I've been trying for the last 20 years almost to detach myself to that handshake so I can apply more longevity to all those facets, all those parts of my life. Because I think that the reason why I'm still excited about advertising is because I'm not just an ad guy.
Oh, I completely agree with you. I've always had parallel careers going on. Even when I've been working in ad agencies, I've always worked at radio stations as a DJ. At the same time, you try and fit it in, but you know what? I just loved being in the business. And it didn't matter whether I was in a radio station or sitting in a recording studio or, sitting in a video edit suite or being in the agency. I just loved it.
It's good to be in a business because you are excited about it, not because you don't have any choice.
Correct. Exactly right. Now, it causes me a problem now I'm interviewing you because I don't know which direction to go down. Let's talk about your books. PJ Caldas, is that your name?
Yes, that's my pen name. In the US. In Brazil, I still sign my books as PJ Pereira. But the problem is that after 20 years in America, having an agency called Pereira Odell, if there's one thing that I've learned is that Americans cannot spell Pereira.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they just put the I on different places.
Right.
It's just impossible. So if like, you know what, I'm gonna try a different name. I'm gonna say Caldas is easier for them to spell. So I will be punished. I'll be less punished by Google and searches on Amazon. So I try that, but I still don't know if it's a good idea. I'm still like judging it.
And what are the books about? I mean, they about your life in advertising, and they're not kind of how-to books in advertising. They're novels, yes.
Yeah, they're novels. So the last book, they always have to do with something very old and something new. So my first books were about African mythology, which are like very important in Brazil, in Brazilian culture, and the internet and the rise of the internet on newsrooms. So that was the story and the conflict in the story. The newer book that I published 2 years ago is called The Girl from Udang, is about artificial intelligence and kung fu and MMA. It's like, I'll say that artificial intelligence and martial arts,
So you really have combined all your interests into the books.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, I have to maximize time.
You talk about martial arts though, PJ. I mean, are you talking about the whole gamut of stuff, or are you just talking jiu-jitsu or kung fu, or what is it? Do you have a particular area of specialization?
I'm old enough to have tried everything you can imagine. So I started fighting when I was like 8, 10 years old, 8, 9, 10. Like my father was a judo black belt, and I talked to a client of mine who produced a very important series about TV series about martial arts, and he was telling me like what I asked him, and the series was called Why We Fight, and I asked him, so why do we fight? Because I've been fighting for my entire life. He said, no, it's always because someone else. And I said, Bush, oh, damn, I did it because of my father. And if like, and now I've been doing therapy about that for the last month just because of that conversation. But it was that. And my father was a judo black belt. I decided to do that because of him. And then I have a son. My son enjoys martial arts now. And now I do because of him, because it's our connection. So, but it's martial arts is the most, other than family, is the most important part of my life.
And you're a black belt as well, yes?
I have 3 black belts and I'm working on my 4th one. And there are other things that I can use as well that don't have belts.
So no one messes with you in the agency, I guess.
I'm old enough to be messable, but I can hurt people.
So was there a moment early on when you realized that creativity wasn't just about making things, but about shaping how people believe, feel, and behave?
You know what? I still don't know if I go back and forth. I mean, the truth of the matter is that there was a part of my life that creativity was a fun thing. So like I like to watch movies, I like to read books, I like to create stuff, and it's just that impulse to create. Then there was a moment that I started to treat creativity as a problem solving tool. There's a way of thinking, and there was for a long time. I every time someone asked me, so what is your definition of creativity? Like, I like this idea that creativity is the opposite of logic. So logic, you take a problem, you build in the most efficient way a path to a solution, and then creativity is the opposite of that, in the sense that it's a very inefficient way of thinking, that you just throw solutions on the wall and see if something sticks, which makes it very, very upsetting, because you're going to have your heart broken more often than not. You have to be bold because you're going to face plants a lot, but it's fun as well. But recently I started to think that may be wrong. And I was in a book launch event a couple of years ago in San Francisco, and kind of was talking to readers, and kind of an old woman kind of raised her hand. If like, yeah, I've been reading about your book. I'm really curious about it. I like the story, but what happens if I like you? Your next book, is it going to be written by AI? Because I don't want to read a book about AI. And that shook me to my core. And it took me a while to understand why is this happening. It was nerve-wracking because I was in front of the audience. Everyone is looking at me for like, I have to say something. I have an impulse, but let me think about it. So give me a second. And then I look back to I can promise you that my next book is not going to be written by AI. And this is the reason is because I'm not writing because I want to solve a problem. I'm not writing because I want to put a product on the shelf. I'm not writing because I have a business plan. I'm writing because I have a story in my head that if I don't let it out, I'll die. Right? And then that's when I realized that, you know what, for as much as we think as creativity is this thing that we do as a way of solving problems, about moving people, I think we're overcomplicating it. Creativity is just an impulse. It's something that we have to get out because we have stuff in our heads, and if we don't do, we die, right? And the most amusing thing, the reason why people get so fascinated by that is the same reason why people get fascinated by astronauts, by UFC fighters, by pirates. It's because those are people who put their bodies at risk in ways that you wish you had the guts to do, but you don't. It just, creativity is just the intellectual version of it. Is the brain version of I can get stabbed, I can get punched in the face, I can die. If once you put an idea that has never been done out in the world, you're allowing yourself to get your whole identity shattered and destroyed, and that's dangerous. And everyone knows, everyone, you and your kid, you say something stupid and someone looks at you and laughs at you, and then you never again try a different idea in your life. Very few of us end up feeling like, okay, that's fun, I like that through. The same way that very few of us decide to, okay, go in front of someone else and risking being punched in the nose and having our nose broken is fun. it's not for everyone. It's not for everyone to risk having your ideas punched in the nose, but some of us do. And then I think that that's the value of creativity. It's amusing for most of the world to feel like, oh, there's a human being on the other side that decided to take that risk. That's why when I see all these discussions about AI and feel like, all right, are we going to destroy creativity with this because now computers are going to create stuff? No, we won't, because the amusement behind creativity, the reason why creativity is so important for culture is because we're just pirates of thought. People like to think that there's someone that is doing that, and the romantic side of that. Okay, all right, this person did it and he's trying. The moment is a robot having that idea, it loses the amusement. There's no value behind it.
Wow. Pirates of Thought. I don't think I'm going to nick that one. Well, let's rewind, PJ, back to 2012. The Beauty Inside was an incredible branded project you did with obviously a very brave client at that time with Intel. And I've been watching all of the episodes that you created. And there's that guy from Criminal Minds. I'm going, oh, well, I recognize that bloke, right? But they are absolutely beautiful. And, what a great thing to do. Do you think you set a standard for brand entertainment at that time?
I don't know. I've never tried to set a standard. The joy of it, the fun of it for me is a subversion of it. It's like trying to do things in a way that they're not supposed to happen. So the idea of setting a standard is a little bit counterintuitive for me. So it makes me flinch a little. It's like setting a standard. I don't want to set a standard. I don't want anyone to follow the rules. I want people to. I think the most fun is looking at something and using it in the wrong way. So what we were doing back then is like, it's a story is supposed to be told by the writer. And we were asking ourselves, so imagine this character that wakes up in a different body every day, which is a little bit of subversion of the story, but it's not the first time that you start from a wild assumption. I think that the wild part there was that, okay, if this character is wakes up in a different body every day, what if we relinquish and release control from the hands of the writers and give to the audience a chance to play the character and write the character? What if we just ask them, hey, this character woke up in your body. Play that, record the video of you are Alex and what happened. And we got some of the most heartbreaking and entertaining things as well at the same time. There was one guy that wrote to me like, I woke up today and I have cancer. I don't know if I'm going to survive this time. And there was a woman that said, I woke up today and I'm pregnant. What's going to happen to my baby tomorrow? I have chills thinking about this. Those are things that people were doing because we gave them a way to participate on the story that we had no idea. But it's thrilling, but it's scary as shit.
Absolutely.
All of a sudden you lose control of your character. And I think that's what the piracy happens, is allow yourself to completely lose control or to try things in ways that they're not supposed to happen. I don't know where my stories are going to end when I start. The characters live in my head and they determine things that go beyond my intentions. And well, it's part of the fun. It's part of the thrill. The same way that when I walk into the octagon or when I walk into the ring or step on the mats, I don't know if the person in front of me is going to choke me to sleep or if we're going to break my arm or if we're going to break my teeth. But I'm game. I'm fine with it.
Now, I watched the first couple thinking, okay, I'll get an idea of what it's about. I won't need to watch all of them. How wrong I was, that character of Alex. And I got, after the first couple, I have to watch the whole lot, right? And when you originally showed them, people had to wait every week for the new one to come out. It's like watching an incredible drama. And you're on tenterhooks for another week. And you won a Daytime Emmy for that as well. So it's an incredible piece of work. I absolutely loved it.
No, thank you. That was the second of a series of 4 different movies. We did a social media kind of piece of entertainment, piece of social media series or movie or whatever in 4 different genres. The first one was a thriller. The second one was a fantasy romantic story. Then the third one was humor. The fourth one was a really fantastic story. But the building side almost didn't happen. The story behind that, the very few people know that is kind of cool. That is, we had a thriller. So it was for Intel. The main thought there is that Intel is all about what's inside. So let's do a series of films, because consumers were, especially at that time, they mostly use their computers for entertainment and for social media. The mobile phones was the device for social at that point. It's how do we combine entertainment, social media, and entertainment at the same time? We created this genre. So let's do a thriller first. So we created the story of these girls. Always the waking up thing. So a girl wakes up and she's in a room and she doesn't know where that room is, and she needs to use the audience's. She has the internet connection in her computer, and she's trying to use the audience's advice to find clues to get out, right? And then the client loved it. Awesome. We found like a super cool director, Hollywood director who kind of doing thrillers all around. We have it. Then one day we get a call from the client saying, "Oh, this is great," but we talked to legal, and they say that it's fine as long as the girl is not afraid for her life or any kind of violence. And the team calls me and like, "Oh my God, what do we do with that? We're trying to solve this problem, but we don't." It's like, guys, there's no way around it. So let's be honest about this. If they're saying this, they're saying they don't want a thriller. Try to find a way to get a thriller that the main character is not afraid. Means that the thriller is dead. Let's just come to terms with it. But we have a meeting with them to discuss the script tomorrow at 8 a.m. or at least the treatment of what the script is tomorrow 8 a.m. and it's already 4 p.m. What do we do? It's like, okay, I'm going to the office. We're going to talk. We go back to the office and say, let's talk about what do we do with this idea in other genres. So it's kind of open. What are the genres that you like? There's fantasy, there's this and that. And it's like, okay, let's talk about a romantic story here. What would that be? And then someone in the middle of that conversation, like, okay, what if it's a story of this person that wakes up in a different body every day, but inside they're always the same? Like, oh, that's cool. And we started to, it's like, yeah, well, what would be the wardrobe? I remember that thing. The wardrobe question was the one that got us hooked. What would that wardrobe be like? You had to have shoes in all different sizes and with men and women's clothes. And what if you're old and one day, what if you fall in love? And like, oh, okay, now stop everything. That would make everyone stop. We wrote that story. And the next day at 8 a.m., we had a client in there like, hey, you said that you don't want it. You don't want the person to be afraid. So it's not a thriller. So these are the 4 genres. There's one that we really like. We sold them into the idea of doing the story of the building side. Great. It's like, yes, awesome. We want to do this. Let's do that. And so the thriller is dead then, right? It's like, can I suggest you something? It's like, okay, do the thriller first. So why? Because the thriller is going to shock the world and it's going to make people feel like, how is a brand doing a story about a woman that is afraid for her life? It's not normal. Like, that's going to buy you credibility to the second one. And said, but what if it doesn't work? Are you prepared to kill your idea, your brilliant idea, because you think that the other one is a better start? And I said, yes. And I had to say yes with all the confidence in the world, because I believed it from an intellectual standpoint. I believed it. And they said, okay, let's do it. We signed and they left the building. And then everyone in the room looked at me and said, what the fuck did you just do? And I said, what I did is that I committed to what is right. And now we need to make the first one work. Otherwise, what's possibly going to be the best work of our careers is going to be dead. So let's make this first one work. We made it. It worked so much that in the end, at the last episode of the first one happened live with people walking in and like mystery happening in a train station in LA. We had the ending, the client, we kind of toasted at the train station at a bar there. Like, yeah, let's do it. And the client looked at me and like, wow, this one was so successful. You're right, it was so successful that I think that we shouldn't do the beauty inside anymore. I think we should do the inside experience too. And I said, no fucking way. Now we're going to do that. You're not going to do that to me. And no, but there's no but. I'm not talking to you until we're doing that. And we ended up doing it. Thankfully, I didn't screw up that badly. But I got this close.
Incredible. No, so you built this incredible agency, Pereira Odell, with your partner Andrew Odell, who I've met a number of times now. Yet now you're building a new style agency, or what actually you call an AI lab. It's called SilverSide. Why would you build a separate AI company rather than simply just evolve Pereira Odell from within?
It's a really good question. So the short answer for that is that these things are moving way too fast for me to have for this operation to have to negotiate with the legacy. So, and even though the Pereira Odell is faster than any other agency that I know, AI is still faster than Pereira Odell. So I wanted to have a structure that was completely independent, that didn't have to negotiate with the past to chase the future, right? That was the thought. There's a longer version of this that is, I was in the industry when the internet was born. Actually, that was my ticket in. I was hired by my first advertising job to be the internet guy. I was the only guy in the agency that had an email, right? And that was my job, was to help the agency understand what was the role of the internet in advertising, because at that time it was just TV and print. And I realized very quickly back then that although there was a lot of value on doing things, I could see the future of digital and TV and print kind of being done together because ideas were the same and consumers were the same, that the structures of the traditional business, the way that an agency was structured was too stiff to adapt to the new model. And that's why the razor fishes of the world, the organics of the world, the KQAs and RGAs were being born, is because they had to be unbound to the rules of the current business model. And felt like, okay, I learned from that. Let's create a separate business so we can understand what the business is, these new business. And then as we evolve those two things, we can learn from each other. We can adjust each other based on what we are seeing. And then later down the road, we can see, are those two different things, or they just going to become the same again? So I'm letting the world teach us how it wants to be instead of forcing it just because the business cannot flex in different directions.
And clearly, SilverSide is proving to be a company shaking things up. I think you won the award for Best Breakthrough Agency last year. Was it Ad Age? And you just opened up in London as well.
We're trying our best to stay unbound.
Has SilverSide made you, PJ, more optimistic about creative possibilities?
I think so.
You're more aware of how broken parts the old model has already become, or how do you feel about it, this new AI native model?
So I was honestly, I was getting bored by advertising before AI happened, because it was like, okay, I've been doing this for a while. I know how my day is going to be, how my week is going to be. So I love my team. I really appreciate the trust of the clients, but for like the work itself, it's like, I know too much. It's for someone that is so obsessed about what's next, it was getting a little too predictable. But this AI came, and in a big irony, right? I got into this AI thing because of the novel, and the AI is the villain, or is the opponent of my main character, right? So I never got into it with the intention of liking it. I went into it with the intention of disliking, of portraying it as a threat. And I did in the book. For 10 years of research, all I did was discuss and study the threat. But then something happened when you got really close to the launch of the book. That's when Midjourney came out, when ChatGPT came out, and I started to feel like, oh, this is becoming a reality. And I started to study GPTs like 2 years before ChatGPT came to life, and play with these ideas that have their own ideas, and we explain what a concept is to the machine, see and watch it do its own variations, and watch it get better of every version. Like every 6 months there was something new coming up, and it's like, oh my god, this is incredible. And now it's like every week. And when I started to play with it, I feel like I'm gonna do the book launch with it, just to play with it, and feel like, oh, this is going to transform my business. Is going to transform how I create things. So we created a lab within Perodel, and we started to play with that. It's like, oh, this is not just going to be a little department. This is like the internet days, that it may become a completely separate thing. So let's create a separate company, and we did. And that gave me the perspective of there's a completely new way of thinking about creativity, that whether if it's a separate business or it's part of your, or what it is going to transform the act of creating altogether. Because the same way that one day in the 70s, people had to learn that how to create ideas that move and talked, because they were no longer printed. And then in the late 90s and the early 2000s, we had to discover that there's a new kind of creativity that talks back at you, and they're interactive. I think now we're about to discover a new generation that feels to me, I'm not totally sure about it, but it feels to me that there are the ideas that have their own ideas. There's like, if the MasterCard price list was being created today, someone will be writing a format and then say, okay, I think this is a format that can be replicated infinitely. And I'm going to teach a machine how to do it and track what's happening in the world, and give me ideas of scripts that I can do, that of things that are priced, that I can say, but for everything else, there's MasterCard. And every day I'll have something new, and I'll have the coolest TikTok thing ever, because now I can have a statement about how priceless things are, how priceless life is every day, because now I have a machine that helps me make it. And I think that's a wonderful thing, that there's a new category of creativity that we can explore as creative minds.
I completely agree. I'm actually an AI optimist. But then I was talking last week, PJ, to a journalist who wanted me to provide some sound bites about, what does it do for talent in the industry, and how things are going to change, and the new talent coming into the industry. What kind of skills are they going to need to be successful and thrive? What do you think?
Listen, I have seen the reports about how AI has demolished or had single-handedly deleted entry jobs. That's a lie. Let's start with this. That's a lie. The jobs are going away, and the executives are saying that it's because of an AI, but it's a lie, because no one deleting those jobs actually understands anything about AI. So they're just doing a nice story to justify their mismanagement, and to tell the shareholders that they're doing something. But it's a story about mismanagement, not AI, right? Let's start here. The second part here, that is, I get the logic, and I get that, oh, now AI is going to do the simple things, and the simple things are what the interns used to do for us experienced people. Yes, that's how it has been. I understand it, but I'm living in this life right now. So when you look around, see these people around, there are a bunch of 20-year-olds in their first job in advertising ever, and they are writing scripts and they're directing films at 22, which is an age that if you're producing any films, you're doing coffee runs. So by the time that when I was 22, if I decided to direct a film, they would tell me, you need to wait, you need to do 10 years of coffee runs and carrying cables around before you do it. They're doing that already. So people who are saying that the jobs are going to be gone for the young ones, they don't have a clue. I'm seeing it. I'm telling you from the belly of the beast, that's not what's working, not happening.
So what you're actually saying is that because when they're coming into the industry, they already have all the skills because they've just been playing with this stuff before they come into the business.
It may be that, but I think it may actually be the opposite of that. They do not have the skills, neither do we. So I think there has never been a moment in history where the CEO, and there has been a smaller gap between the CEO of an agency and the intern. And we are trying to say that that's bad for the intern, but that's crazy. The smaller gap is bad for the CEO, not for the intern.
That's a great way to look at it. That's brilliant. Look, my kids are, early teenagers, right? So, if you were going to give advice to someone whose children were my age, coming up through their kind of early years, what kind of skills do you think they should be learning now before they go out into the big wide world?
And I'm a father, so that is the ultimate question that I have in mind, and that makes me very insecure. And that's like the most difficult question that I've been struggling with is, what do I tell my son? And I think that what I've been telling him, so this is as honest as I can be, right, is that you can't afford to not seriously consider this and learn this. You have the right to be against it. You have the right to be an activist against AI and the future that these big tech corporations are trying to build. And you can have a political opinion about the dangers of a world that is going to be controlled by 7 people. I saw these statistics today from a Nobel Prize economist that each one of the 7 big tech companies right now are bigger individually. Each one are bigger than the British Empire at its peak, right? So we're talking about emperors. We're not talking about CEOs. We're talking about people with a gigantic amount of power. And I don't know if that's a world that I wanted, a political structure that I personally want. And I want my son to have an opinion about these things, but he cannot let his political opinion cause him to reject the skills that he needs to develop. The skills that he needs to develop are fundamental for his future. He's in film school right now. He needs to learn how to do these things, even if it's to one day decide that he's going to reject and become the filmmaker like Christopher Nolan that does everything practical. Yes, he can do that, but he's Christopher Nolan. There's only one Christopher Nolan. If he becomes Christopher Nolan, awesome, good for him. But if he decides to be the next CGI wizard, if he decides to be the next creator of Pixar, he wants to have those skills as well. And so I think that the best advice is develop the skills.
And what about human skills? There must be some things that AI can't do. Human skills such as selling and negotiating and presenting and building human interactions, building rapport. Those skills are going to become more important as time goes on.
And I have very poor human skills in myself.
I don't believe that for a moment.
No, seriously. I said that my wife is the opposite of it. She has incredible emotional skills. I'm married to a fairy. She's like the most wonderful person. And I usually say that if I wasn't married to her, I'll die alone because all my friends will disappear because I don't have the skills to cultivate the relationships around me, just because I live too much inside of my own head. It's not by a judgment or anything. It's just that the skill that I don't have. But I feel like people like her with those incredible skills of getting around people and they're going to be more valuable than ever. But I think there's still human on what I do that I think is going to be more important than ever as well. That is being in touch with your memories, with your feelings, with your comprehension of the world. I mean, if you look at the work that actors do, they act with their memories. They don't act with the scripts. They don't read and say, "Oh, now you look sad." You look by. I remember I saw Matt Damon talking about The Rock's performance on the Smashing Machine and how touching it was, a specific scene that he reveals that he's afraid of, that he admits that he has a drug problem. His character, and he was doing that, and so The Rock gave an interview about these moments, and he's so touching, and you don't expect that from him. And he said, I remember when my mother was at the hospital when she was told that she had cancer, I think, and she pulled the sheets and she hid for a second behind the sheets, and that moment of try to hide from something that she couldn't, that's the moment, that's exactly the moment that he pulled from his memory and the setting and the smells and the tastes and the fears. That's what brings us, that's what makes us humans, and that's what allows us to deal with machines that have infinite ideas and see if, oh, that idea is really good, I want that, I'm going to take this line. It happened to me yesterday. I was working on something and I say, just AI, try something for me. I want to write something that is based on this. And I gave it a very complicated brief. Gave it to the AI. It wrote like a first draft of a manifesto that would take me a few hours struggling with the white page. It gave it to me. And it wasn't really good. But there was one line there that was special. I was like, oh, that one line, I remember this. I have that memory. And I remember the feeling and the fascination I have with that moment. Let's take this and turn into something else. So I was directing the AI with my memories and my feelings. And I think that's the human skill that I think is going to survive, because there's that thing that people say that if you give an infinite number of monkeys a typewriter, and one of them is going to write a Shakespeare, but there's going to need to be one motherfucker there kind of reading all the bunch of crap to see which one is a Shakespeare. We're that one. We're that one reading the motherfuckers monkeys things and saying, oh, this is the Shakespeare. And we can only do that because we have fallen in love before. Because we were afraid of death, because we're taken by lust. Those human instincts are what define our humanity. And the machines are never going to have that. The silicon chip will never understand what sex and hunger or heartbreak is.
So that whole emotional thing, it's like making people laugh, making people cry, that kind of stuff. That's the real stuff where you can leverage your humanity in the creative process when working with AI. I think that's amazing. But what do clients still most misunderstand about AI in the creative process?
I think is the fact that you're looking, the whole world, and specifically clients, they're looking at AI as a way to unlock efficiency. And I think that's a wrong thing to do, because when you go deep enough, it's way more efficient than the traditional old ways, but it's not where the benefit is. The real benefit is unlocking how it unlocks ambition. As a creative mind, there are ideas that have been killed that I can do. Now I can present, that typical thing, you bring 3 ideas to the client, that they're going to pick the safest, and you really struggle. Do I even present the safest? Because it's going to kill the best one. Now we can present all 3 and say, okay, I know that this is the safest, this is the better, this is one in the middle, so let's kill the one in the middle. Let's do the safest, and let's do the boldest, and we can't afford to do both. I had a client a few months ago kill an idea because they told me, hey, this idea is my favorite, it's brilliant, but it's too expensive to make for the product that it represents. I'm not willing to spend that much money for this product. It's fun for my brand, but the product itself doesn't justify it. So no, thank you. End of discussion. 3 months later, there was an update on how the technology worked. Therefore, okay, now that spot that was dead can be done almost instantly. So we spent one work with a couple people here doing it. Call the client, say, hey, I want to show you something. What is it? I showed the work done. And they gave it to him. So now you can run it. And he ran it. It was incredible. So the idea that now we don't need to kill a script or a story because it's too expensive or because it's not for that's liberating. So I think
Yeah.
AI should be there. We should look at that as a way to unlock ambition, not to unlock efficiency. That changes everything.
That's amazing. Look, I mean, I always, we started changing the way clients looked at production models numerous years ago, including using virtual production, which we've worked a lot with 3 or 4 years ago. And now with AI, you've really taken the shackles off. Creativity. Everything is possible now with the technology. And I love that, it's about ambition now. That's what it is, unlocking ambition, which I think is a brilliant way to look at it rather than just about efficiency. Of course, it's brilliant for efficiency.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't be the kind of going in position, I guess.
Yeah.
How do you, PJ, let's talk about a couple of personal things. How do you personally deal with creative fear? Do you ever have that, especially when you're about to pitch something very audacious? How do you deal with that?
Man, I deal with that going to the gym and getting punched in the face. Because it both releases the stress and makes that fear seem silly. When I walk in a room, try to sell an idea, like, damn, it's like, yeah, I can take that person down any day. It's like I feel, because of my life in the dojo, I feel so comfortable being uncomfortable. I have I remember, and this is not a metaphorical thing. It's a true feeling. I remember being in a situation where I was talking to Andrew about something, and it's like, oh my God, this is so stressful, but look at this, the tension was building. And then I looked at it like, you know what? Yesterday, I had a 300-pounder person sitting on my chest. I could barely breathe. And all I could think is can I hold 3 more seconds before the clock runs out? And I did. So I can handle that pressure. So I think that is the way that I found. But I think that part of that is also having other creative outlets. Writing also helps me with that, because I have a dog. There's a guy that was fascinated, obsessed with this, called Cesar Millan. He's a dog trainer, a TV dog trainer. And it was all about kind of dogs. The trick with dogs, they have to get them exercise, because if they're tired, they're good dogs. I think that our creativity, if it's exhausted, if it's tired, is a good skill. It's like a dog. If you come to work in advertising with all that bottled creativity that you have to express, the next assignment that you see, the next blank page, you're going to try really hard to exercise your creativity at the highest level with that. Sometimes your personal interests don't match the client. Sometimes what the client needs is something very simple and fast that just solves the problem, and he can move on to something that really matters to him. If when you look at that page, all you can think is your own creative anxiety, you're not going to be able to see what the client really needs. So for me, another way of dealing with creative fear is not looking at the next assignment as my only outlet for my creativity. So when I write my books, I'm exercising my ability to write long arcs, which helped with things like the building inside. But it also helps me feel like, okay, if a client kills my idea, I haven't killed my creativity. I have this outside part that I can still do that is completely independent from my clients. Now, when I look at a client, I'm just thinking about them and the problem they need to solve, and I'm going for that. When my creativity can help, it's awesome. But if there's something that just needs to get 1 + 2 = 3 said, I'll say it, and I'm fine. I'm fine with that. I've been exercised enough to be a good dog.
And having other outlets, I think, is such an important thing. This is one of my outlets, particularly as, I'm not in a business that actually makes stuff. We're in the business of advisory, right? So I wanted to have something where I could make something. And this podcast has been a great outlet for me for the last 3 or 4 seasons. We're in season 5 now, of course. One of the things that I've suffered of hugely since I've been in this business for the last 40 odd years is imposter syndrome. Right. Sometimes I wake up and go, how the hell did I get here? Somebody's going to find me out one day. Yeah. Did you ever suffer from imposter syndrome?
I think that imposter syndrome is the typical, the most common struggle with any creative thing. It's that the pirate thing that we're discussing. It's like a pirate never knows if we're going to have, if we're going to be killed in the next boat to try to steal. Right? It's like, we don't know if the next opponent is going to be the one who's going to kill us, is going to take us down. We don't know if the next fight is going to be the one that's going to break our strike. It's our streak, and it's a natural part of the process. That's why creativity is so amusing, is because the next one may be the one that is going to destroy your ego. And if you're not willing, if you're not emotionally prepared, if you're not willing to have your heart broken, you're in the wrong profession. The only reason why creativity is amusing for an audience is because creativity is amusing because they know that there's a person that may have their heart broken in the end, because an idea may not work, and this next assignment you may not have an idea for it. When I go to the gym every day, I feel like, oh, this may be the day that my age is going to show me that I can no longer fight younger people, that my technique doesn't matter anymore. But I go there to see, let me see if today is not the day again. Every time I see a blank page, I feel like today may be the day that my creativity is not going to be enough to solve this problem. But I walk in and feel like today is not going to be that day. So that's what feeds me. And I think that if you're not prepared for that, it's time to go.
Amazing. Look, doing my research, and you can tell me to shut up and go away, I discovered that you were raised in a religious cult in Rio de Janeiro. Yeah. I mean, first of all, look, you don't have to answer it, but how has that shaped your life in any way, and the way that you approach or think about things in life?
I'm still trying to figure that out. It's like a topic of my therapy forever, but it's like all my books are a result of me trying to deal with that and my necessity to avoid conflict, and at the same time dive straight into it. Like my passion for fighting, I think, has to do with that, but also my need to avoid conflict with my friends and try to find a way to get everyone to be listened. I think that's why being a creative director worked for me, is because I live in a world of such tension where voices were squandered and were crushed so fast, so easily, and so quickly, that my first instinct is always to listen to everyone. And I think that's very good for having collective ideas. For like everyone that said, I'm paying attention to everything that everyone is saying. I have no problem killing them, but I'm considering everything. And I remember I met Glenn from 72 and Sunny, and it's kind of funny. I'm wearing this shirt today. It's kind of shirt that says maybe, because I was in another podcast once and they said, if you had to put your entire creative philosophy in one shirt, what would it be? And I said, maybe. And it's like, what? It's like, for me, every idea is a maybe. And I was wearing this and I was talking to Glenn, and it's like, it's funny because the one thing that I always say that a creative director cannot afford is to be a maybe person, because you have to be decisive. And for for me, I'm talking about the other side of it. It's like, for me, every idea is a possibility, something that you can consider. And if you're talking about technologies and the world that changes so fast, you need to consider that everything is a maybe. I grew up in a world that in a community that nothing was a yes. There was no babies. Everything was a yes. It was coming from a certain person or a group of people, and it was a no if it was coming from anyone else. It was only a yes if you're copying someone else, right? So when I stepped out of it, for me, listening to people and considering the possibility of something that someone else is saying, even if it's against you, be true. It became a principle. Especially in a position of power, I feel very proud of myself when I have a chance of saying no to someone and I still listening and still saying that's a maybe. I'm gonna consider that. But I'm still struggling with it. It's not easy because I wasn't raised for this. I was raised to appreciate power and feel disrespected if someone says anything that I disagree with.
Wow. If you could rewind back in time, what would you have done differently?
Oh, man. I would have worked out more and taking care of my body a little bit more carefully throughout my life. So have more. I'll be more prepared I will be more longevity from and more resilience in all shapes. And I would have insisted more on telling my father to take care of his own health as well, because he died when he was 49 and I'm 52, and that's kind of very life-defining thing for me, not dying early like my father. So he in a way, he kind of gave me the gift of life, because I can only see my son growing up as an adult, because I'm afraid of dying early like him. So that's why I'm taking care of my body. So, but if I could rewind, then I would have told him, Dad, just don't do this. Just take care of your health first.
PJ, look, we're coming to near the end of the podcast now, but we do have one final question to ask you, and you know what it is. What is your favorite ad of all time?
When people told me, like, this question is going to come, be prepared. Like, I have no problem. I know what it is. I have no question. And it has nothing to do with innovation. It's one of the most old school spots, and the technique, everything is very, very, very simple and almost flat about it, except that it's so beautifully written that it kind of is a reminder for me of how creativity has very little to do with complexity. Is an ad for a newspaper called The Independent, called Litany, that is a masterpiece in writing.
Don't be old, don't be ordinary, don't be different, don't stand out, don't drop out, don't buy, don't read.
Fantastic. Look, we're going to post that up onto the Prodcast website. And I have to tell you, PJ, this has been one of the most interesting conversations. You are one of the most interesting people I think I've met on the podcast. And I know you're going to be in Cannes in a few weeks, so I'm going to grab you and we're going to have a caipirinha together.
Let's do it.
Thanks for joining me on the podcast.
And thanks for having me.
Today, I chatted with PJ Pereira, one of the most progressive and innovative creative leaders in our industry. PJ is the co-founder of Pereira O'Dell and SilverSide, agencies that are redefining what it means to build brands in the modern world. To find out more about the Prodcast, please head to theprodcast.com, where you'll find details on all my guests, links to their favorite ads, and full transcriptions on all of the episodes. If you'd like to feature on the Prodcast or have any comments, questions, or feedback, please email us at podcast@murphycobb.com. I'm Pat Murphy. Do come and connect with us on LinkedIn or Instagram, of which all the links in the notes for this episode will be there. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again to PJ, my production team at What Goes On Media. Thanks for listening. See you next time.